give Gibby the credit on the next play as DeBrincat almost puts one in out of midair. Blocker saved there by Gibby. But then not too much longer later, a first for Marcus Pettersson was able to put in his first career NHL goal, kind of a lob. It was a weird play. Bieksa gets a point shot, blockered away by Forsberg, but when he blocked it, it goes directly to the other point. And Derek Grant in front. He couldn't really see if it would touched him, but I guess on several replays, I think it didn't. It might have clipped a Chicago defender, but Pettersson's goal made it 3-0 Anaheim.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, too. And even Pettersson said it at the end of the game. He thought it hit Grant when it went in, and it kind of looks like it takes some kind of deflection. I think it might have hit off a Blackhawks player, but it really was just a floater. And there was a lot of guys in front of Forsberg, so he couldn't see the puck. But, hey, I mean, you got to get a break somewhere. And it's great to see him get rewarded for his play and for still being with the Ducks. And it kind of shows, how much confidence they have in this guy that he's still up here and playing a pretty big role with the Ducks. So it's great to see him get his first goal. Obviously, it's not the prettiest of first goals, but hey, you got to get one somewhere.
No, and that's probably makes him feel really good, right? I mean, he's been playing up, and he's trying to hold his own and prove that he belongs up in the NHL and doesn't need to go back down to the goals and write out the rest of the season, which I think it's going to happen. He's played a decent game, and he's had a couple of off nights, but he's the one holding the fort there, so the old guys can take breaks, and that's kind of what this needs to be done. He gets him some NHL experience and give the old dudes a break, and hopefully it just continues.
Yeah, I hope so too. But I had looked at Jakob Larsson had a strong game the other night in San Diego. He got the overtime winner, had a couple points in that one. Last time I checked, he had an assist in the game tonight, and that puts him at 4 points in the last 3 games. So he's turning things on, and I'd love to see him get a chance, but I also don't want it to be at the risk of sending Marcus Pettersson down, especially the way he's been playing. But, I kind of agree with you. Pettersson's in there so the old guys can get a break. I would love to see him up for the rest of the season, but it kind of feels like eventually they might send him back down to the goals if the Ducks start rolling along.
Yeah, that's a possibility. It's just nice to see Carlisle actually trust the young guy and let him play minutes like that. Not much going after that goal by Pettersson until Silfverberg, baby, gets on the board. The guy we've been talking about has been snake bit. He puts the Ducks up 4-0. It was a great keep by Derek Grant, gets behind the net to Cogs. Cogs picks it up, throws it to the slot. And then Derek Grant, as much as he didn't play well in a fourth line when he was out here on this shift, ties up Saad's stick. And everyone got caught kind of puck watching in the slot for the Hawks. Silfverberg gets time to go top shelf. And Grant's looking good so far in this game, though, with 2 assists.
Yeah, and that's the type of player and the type of play we've kind of expected from Derek Grant. He kind of gets thrown out in different situations, does this thing every now and then, and contributes to the offense. But what a break for Jakob Silfverberg to finally get on the board. Like you said, the first goal in 15 games for him. And we actually got a question in the chat right when you were mentioning it, almost if it was fate. Rodney said, did Silfverberg finally break his bad luck curse? And I feel like he did. I mean, this was the start, hopefully, of him to get things going in the right direction. I mean, it couldn't have felt good for him to not have a goal in 15 games and for finally to get that monkey off his back. That's got to be huge.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely get towards it at the end of after we wrap up the third period here in a minute or two, because we got to talk about that Kessler line. I mean, they looked good, and we'll take a little bit of dive into those stats from today here in a minute. But who else was buzzing today was Raquel. Yeah, he got that first one, but he looked pretty good throughout the first 40 minutes as he was buzzing around. But what ended up happening here is the Ducks just get caught not playing hockey. They get up 4-0, and we've seen this before. The Ducks in the second period, where they kind of sit back, and they were letting the Sharks just take it to them. It was a dangerous game the Ducks were playing. I mean, up by 4 is usually a safe place to be, but I mean, in the NHL, that's too early in the second period just to kind of hop back and hope nothing happens. The Ducks would get a couple of chances, but it was mostly Hawks, and then Yurko would score. Thomas Yurko would just get caught in front of the net, gets a slap shot. I forgot it took the initial shot, but he gets a nice deflection on Gibby, no chance, and all of a sudden now it's 4-1.
Yeah, and we had put out the graph from Natural Stat Trick that shows the shot rates in that in the second period, and you can kind of see the point where the Ducks just start coasting along after they get that 4-0 goal. And it was pretty bad. We've seen that, like you said, multiple times from them during the regular season so far, where they get up to either 2, 3, 4 goals, and they think they can just kind of coast their way to the finish line. And it's not something they can continue to do. Obviously, it's kind of a trend for them now. But like you said, Jurko gets the goal, kind of puts the Hawks back into it because they had all the momentum from that goal leading into the second period too. Or sorry, the third period.
Yeah, and Jurko wasn't done there. I don't know if you saw the play where he dangled between Bieksa and Lindholm, backhand. Gibby had to make a huge save, and then Osterley had a really hard shot off Gibby's mask because he kind of did that falling save, let it go off his helmet. And they made a comment in the broadcast about how Quenneville was able to move Taves away from Kane, so splitting up his two most dynamic players, and that's when the damage started being done to the Ducks, where they were able to start eating up guys on the ice and catching the Ducks watching hockey instead of playing hockey. The Hawks looked much faster with those two lines, and they ended up pulling Forsberg in favor of Berube. And then what ended up coming out of that, I don't know if that was like a boost for them, but the Hawks had a 6-1 scoring chance advantage and outshot Anaheim 10-2 after that. So I think the Ducks, it's fair to say they were lucky they got out of the second period with only letting in one goal.
Yeah, I think it's like a combination of everything you just said. It's a boost from maybe getting a guy a little bit more confident into the net, also getting, obviously, splitting up Taves and Kane. It's kind of reminiscent of what we've seen the Ducks do in the past, where Getzlaf and Perry would start the game together, and then you split them up, and all of a sudden they look like a completely different team because now you have to match up against their top two players on separate lines, and the Ducks really couldn't handle that. And then, of course, the goal from Jurko also gives them a little bit of a boost as well. And the Ducks just couldn't really handle the pressure that the Hawks were giving them. And like you said, they're lucky to get out with just allowing the one goal at the end of the second, because it could have been bad. I mean, it could have been 4-2, 4-3 going into the third period.
And that just changes the entire dynamic of that game. The Ducks would have to take more chances the closer the game is, so you can make sure you keep that pressure on the Hawks. You can't just sit back on them and sleep on them. But getting into the third period, the Getzlaf line creates chances early. Raquel just missed off a great play by Getzlaf, but the puck would go the other way. Nick Schmaltz would get a goal. This one was kind of weird for Gibby. Manson was able to take the inside track, pushing Schmaltz wide off the faceoff circle. But Gibby just kind of, I don't know if he misread it or misplayed it. I mean, everyone makes mistakes. He just didn't have his stick in the spot, I guess. He goes right between his legs and in the back of the net. Now it's 4-2 Ducks.
Manson was getting a lot of heat on that too initially.
I don't know
at least
why.
On Twitter. Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, it wasn't a perfect play from Josh Manson, but it definitely wasn't his fault. I mean, he kind of gives a step behind Schmaltz, but then he really does everything he can to push Schmaltz to the outside, and then really Gibby just isn't set for it. All he has to do is kind of put his stick down, like you said, and push the puck away. Wasn't really 100% prepared for the shot that Schmaltz was going to put off, and goes 5-hole. I mean, if you're going to blame anybody, and it's tough the way Gibby had played leading up to this point and all game to blame him, but that's one he really has to have. And I'm sure he's looking back on it, and he realizes, I mean, he has to have that one.
Yeah, I don't know why people would blame Manson. It's like, Gibby's been carrying this team so much. This team's up 4-0 or 4-0 and 4-1. And then Gibby had nothing to do with that first goal. And then the second one, it's like, yeah, your great goalie can make a mistake. Like, it's okay. He made a mistake on the play. Maybe he should have had it. But, I mean, it's hard to blame Manson in that position. I think he did everything he could. Then the Ducks just really took a beating after that in between their next goal. They ended up letting the Hawks pour the pressure on. They were hardly able to get any chances. And then Kasha with a great slap shot that Berube was able to block her away. But then all of a sudden, magic happens for that Kessler line. Silverberg scores again. Kessler throws it in off the half wall, tipped on net by Cogs, and it was kind of like a mess in front. Silverberg gets a stick on it, and all of a sudden it's 5-2 Ducks.
And this is what this line is been good at in the past, is just getting pucks in that, sending bodies there, and cleaning up rebounds, just playing dirty, messy hockey in front of the net. And we hadn't seen that a lot from them this season. They were great in this game, and like you said, we'll get into it a little bit after we break down the rest of this game. But it was great to see them get on the board, and especially, again, Silfverberg getting his second goal of the game. Hopefully this is a huge boost for his confidence. But it's important that this line continues to do this, because we haven't seen this type of play for them in a long time, and there hasn't really been a game where they've stood out as the Ducks' best line. I think this is one of the first times since at least Christmas that this line has stood out and been the Ducks' best line in a game.
It was since Kessler's been back from injury.
Pretty much,
and he's still injured. You can't even say he's 100%. I mean, he's playing hurt. That's well documented, well known. He said it himself. It came together this game for them. And the funny thing about this goal, before we move on from it, is Coach Q decided to call a review for goalie interference. But I had to think, and I was thinking it was funny, because I was thinking, like, there's no way he thought that was goalie interference. He's just trying to, like, the way they call interference in the NHL, so you might as well just roll the dice, and you're already losing 5-2. If this goal counts, so whatever, you get a break, and maybe you can try to recoup your team a little bit and win small battles along the game, along the rest of the game, so this thing's not a total loss for him. But I mean, because I knew right when they overturned his review, he didn't even care. He didn't yell. He didn't ask for an explanation. He's like, all right, whatever, you guys next out. It's like
he's
he
like,
almost
why
just
not?
was like, why not?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a huge difference between being up 5-2 and 4-2, and I mean, I guess I can quote Bieksa when he was in the interview. I mean, it's one goal, but you know, if you're still up 4-2, if you win the challenge, you're within one goal from making a one-goal game. It's a lot tighter, but 5-2 is almost impossible to come back from at that point. So yeah, you might as well throw it out there, hope that they can get some kind of call going their way, because you know Silfverberg was in the crease. He was close enough that you might as well make the call and leave it up to the refs, or leave it up to the situation room and hope you get the call. But yeah, I don't think he thought that it was going to go his way. He's just kind of throwing up a prayer.
Yeah, and he has to at that point. Like, yeah. But I mean, it was just funny the way that all turned out. I mean, but the way NHL's been calling it, I mean, we've seen it go like what, and then like, wait, okay, that's definitely a goal, and then they pull it back. But anyway, that's another story that I'm sure I'll rant on eventually on this podcast when the Ducks have an issue coming up with a review that overturns a goal from them, and I'll go ballistic then. But this went their way. There's no need for me to freak out. Silfverberg with 2 goals on the night after I think he only had 1 in his last 10 or 12 games.
Yeah.
So that was good for him, as we've been talking about that line. The Ducks still decide to stand around a bit. Chicago's still getting chances at this point. Gibby had to make another save on Osterley when he was deep in his net, which is always dangerous. But then this thing just happens again for the Ducks. They get another goal, and this one was freaking beautiful, man. It was just tic-tac-toe passing. Getzlaf to Fowler. Fowler in the slot, instead of shooting from a prime scoring angle, he's able to feed the puck over to Perry. And then Berube makes an insane save on Perry's initial shot, but Perry was able to roof his own rebound, and it would make it 6-2. And at that point, it was all but over.
Yeah, I couldn't believe Berube even got back to make that save, because that play, I don't think anybody saw that coming, really. And it's typical Getzlaf and Perry, the plays that they make. But, I mean, Fowler made a great pass to the back post to get it to Perry in the first place. And, I mean, that's a goal if Perry elevates that off the first shot, but you can't discredit the save that Berube makes. But you know, good on Perry getting to those areas, being able to get the rebound and put it home, and he really looked like, just like Silfverberg, that the confidence was there in this game. And there's no guarantee that continues over, but how big would it be if this was the game that kind of gives Perry and Silfverberg the confidence to just have a great end to the season? Because that's what the Ducks need. These are the 2 guys, I think, that have been most underwhelming for the Ducks offensively so far this season, and to have them both firing on all cylinders into the playoffs would be huge.
Absolutely. You know, we talked about the matchups coming up, and they could definitely use this on Tuesday against Washington, and more importantly on Thursday against Nashville. That's going to be the toughest go this week. So let's hope that continues to happen. But to wrap up the third period, Schmaltz would get his second of the game. Manson, I originally wrote in our notes that Manson fell behind the net, but upon further review, he was tripped behind the net. And then the puck went over to Lindholm. Lindholm mishandles the puck. And then it was a tic-tac-toe play for the Hawks. An easy goal for Schmaltz on the far side of the net, all alone. And that would put the end to it. The only other exciting thing that happened after that was Perry missed an empty net, but he shot that from like 150, 160 feet away. Ducks would get the win. A big win for the Ducks as it puts them back into third place in the Pacific Division. in the playoffs right now. Yes, we have a long way to go. Yes, everyone's still close, but they needed those 2 points, and it was great to see the team come together and take advantage of the Hawks, who are on the second half of a back-to-back and really struggling this season. These are the games you have to win, so when you play the really, really tough ones,